Hi, I'm Lori.
And I'm Kevin, and this is No Longer Ashamed.
We are survivors of childhood sexual abuse.
And we're here to share with you that if you're a survivor, you don't have to be alone.
Our logo is a salamander, and the reason is a fire salamander can survive a fire, and you have survived a fire.
We want to help you with your journey to healing and hope.
We are all survivors together, and we walk this journey together, and you are not alone.
By telling our stories, we are hoping that you will have the courage to share your stories as well and find your voice.
Because stories are so important, and for so long I know that I wouldn't tell my story, but when I finally shared my story, that's when I got my freedom.
And this is our journey and your journey to healing and hope. So come with us.
Our guest is Nathan Spiteri, and he has written an amazing book called Toy Cars, One Man's Journey from Trauma to Triumph. And I really like what Norman, I think it's Fried, wrote on the back. He said, Nathan has written a hauntingly beautiful book about the complexities of childhood trauma and its aftermath. This book is a gift of grace, a treasure of hope from a great teacher and a true survivor. It's so good to have you, and let's just jump in and have you tell your story. I mean, you've written a very thick book, and I was really intrigued when we were first introduced to you just about how all of a sudden, well, it wasn't all of a sudden, but you were encouraged to start telling your story. So tell us your story.
Okay. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me on the show, and I really do appreciate it. So my name is Nathan Spiteri. I'm from Australia, but I've lived in New York for the past 15 years. So I guess my story starts from when I was 8 years old, and it was summertime. I think it was just after Christmas in Australia. So me and my sister, she was 2-3 years older than me. We went down to the local swim. I grew up in a small town just outside of Canberra. Canberra is the capital city of Australia. So I grew up in a small town called Queanbeyan, just outside of Canberra. And the population of Queanbeyan was about 20,000 people at that time. So summertime, there was a local pool downtown, and literally the whole town would go to this pool. I was there one day with my sister, meeting friends. We were there all afternoon. And, you know, we'd done it 1,000 times before. We'd ride our bikes down there and we'd hang out all day and then ride our bikes home. You know, we're talking about the mid-'80s when our parents would say, all right, don't come home until 6 o'clock tonight, or don't come home till it's dark. So me and my sister went down to the pool, swimming. She left early with some of her friends, and I'm like, that's fine. I'll ride my bike home. I've done it 1,000 times before, and stayed till the very end. And there was literally no one there. I went into the change rooms to get changed and have a shower. And a man followed me into the showers and kind of cornered me in the shower, then raped me in the shower. The first words he said to me was that if I tell anyone, he'll kill me and kill my family. And then literally straight after started the grooming, the manipulation and lies of him telling me that this is what my parents wanted, that I was looking at him at the pool and I was picking him up at the pool, that everyone hates me, he's the only one who loves me, so on, so on. It wasn't a family member, but it went on for about 5 years. And again, it started very rough and violent. He would throw me up against the wall. He would choke me out, make me pee my pants, beat me up a little. And, you know, he would, if I can say it, he would rape me quite violently. Turn into a Stockholm syndrome type relationship where, again, through his grooming, his manipulation, all I did was feel love for this man. I just wanted to be with this man. I felt love for him. Again, with the lies of him saying to me that my parents hate me, this is what my parents want, he's the only one who loves me, I love him. Again, I picked him up at the pool, I was looking at him. So again, through the grooming manipulation, I started feeling feelings for this man. I felt love for this man, and I had pushed my parents away, my brother and my sister. I pushed my friends away, and I just wanted to be with this man. After about 5-6 years, I was 13, he abandoned me, and I say he abandoned me. And for 2 years, I was like, well, what am I? Where do I belong? Who am I? What the fuck am I? Am I gay? Am I straight? Am I, you know, he would tell me how special I was. Am I really that special? He would tell me how much more special I am than all the other boys in town. So I was lost, confused, didn't know where I belonged, who I belonged with. And I kept pushing my parents away, building that wall, trusting no one, not being able to communicate, and was just isolating, self-isolating. And by then the shame was already building. The depression was already building. At 15 years old, I would ride my bike to the industrial part of town, which is about a 15-minute bike ride, 20-minute bike ride. And in this industrial part, there were lots of cruise lounges, gay clubs, sex clubs. And as a 15-year-old boy, I would ride my bike there, go in there, and then be raped again by other men. And once that was done, I would turn around and beat them up, bash them, rob them. And that was my fuck you to the world. That was my way of getting my power back. That was my way of feeling alive. That went on, for a good 10, 15 years. And in between that, I discovered drugs, alcohol, sex, violence, and tried killing myself. Lots of ups and downs, lots of depression, crying for days, but unable to tell my story. Again, just so lost, confused, unaware of who I was, where I belonged, who I belonged with. I guess from there, I moved to Sydney. From Canberra, I moved to Sydney, and I was a personal trainer. I was boxing. I continued to do what I was doing. And then I got invited to New York to act, model, to go to school here. So I jumped at the chance to move to New York, to get away from Australia, thinking I could get away from all of that life and start a new life. Come to New York, studied acting and writing, producing, but fell back into it because, it's New York. You can get what you want, when you want, so much cheaper and on a scale of 10 times the amount. Was shooting heroin, was smoking crack, again, tried to kill myself. Lots of sex, lots of violence, lots of drugs. I hit rock bottom. Finally told my very best friend here in New York, not my friends in Australia, told my very best friend here in New York. And I went to meet her in a cafe, and it was like a movie scene. I still feel like it was yesterday. We sat in the middle of the cafe. She was done with me. She wanted nothing to do with me. I was taking her down that bad road, and she wanted nothing to do with it. So she was done. I went to meet with her and said, listen, I need to tell you something. Please just meet me. Please meet me. She decided to, yes. So we were sat in the middle of the cafe. It was just after my birthday. My birthday is February 3rd, freezing cold here in New York. I look like death warmed up. We sat right in the middle, and she said, what do you want? And I was making up, excuses for my actions and my behavior. And she said, all right, fine, I'm done. I'm leaving. And then I just blurted it out. For the very first time in my life, I said I was raped as a child. She sat back down, and I said, listen, I was raped as a kid. I've never told anyone. You're the very first person I've told. And I didn't go into all the detail. I told her about the drugs, but not about the sex and the violence with men and everything else. So through that, she helped me get therapy. Through the therapy, I went to group therapy, to AA, Narcotics, Sex Anonymous, dropped the sex and narcotics and just stuck with AA because AA kind of encompasses all of them. Yeah. And that was in 2012, I think it was. So it was a good 25 years after it happened to me. I didn't tell a soul. So it was 25 years. And these past 10 years, 11 years of therapy and group and AA, I've really discovered who I am. I understand my past now. I understand what my relationship with this man was, my relationship with my parents, my relationship with all these men whilst trying to have relationships with women. So I understand my actions. And for me now, it's about giving back to the world. For me now, it's about educating the world on male sexual abuse. For me now, it's about, and I've said this from the very beginning when I first came out, if I can save one life, if I can help one man or woman get help, find peace, move forward, get closure with their life, then my job is done. I know I've done the right thing. I had a big article come out about me in Australia in the Sydney Morning Herald in 2018. As a result of that, I had a publishing house in Australia reach out to me and ask me to write my memoir, which I did. I started the memoir literally Thanksgiving weekend here in New York. My friends have a house in Sag Harbor in the Hamptons. So I went out there and sat there for a few weeks to start writing. And it took me 5 months. So I wrote for 5 months, 2,000 to 3,000 words a day. And then it was a year of edits and rewrites. And then the book came out mid last year. And here we are today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
it's interesting that there's a statistic of how long it takes before people tell their story, and it's an average of 26 years.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I was 25. So yeah.
You beat the odds a little.
A little, yeah.
So what inspired the article in Australia?
Okay. Yeah, that was 2018. That was the article came out in Australia Halloween weekend of 2018. And a good friend of mine was an editor for the newspaper, was a publisher for this newspaper, for the Canberra Times, but under the umbrella of the Canberra Times, there's a Sydney Morning Herald and a bunch of other massive newspapers. And my friend who I grew up with, who was the editor, said, Nathan, I know your story. Can I do an article about you? And this was the same time that the Prime Minister of Australia was doing a public apology to all survivors of institutional rape, institutional abuse. So all survivors of the Catholic Church, of the Boy Scouts, of these colleges and boarding schools. So the Prime Minister wanted to do a big public apology to everyone and to all the victims. So my friend wanted to do this in conjunction with that. And I remember saying, oh, fuck, am I ready for this? I don't know. But I said, yes, let's do this. And I told my parents I was going to do it. And my parents said, can this be an anonymous article? But it couldn't be, because if it was anonymous, it could have been just a made up article that someone, that the editor wrote and made up. So I put my name, I put my photo to it, and it gave it more power, obviously, because there was a name and a photo, but also I was this young kid from this country town who is now living in New York, chasing his dream and living and surviving and thriving and moving forward with his life, which gave it a lot more weight, I guess.
Yeah. You're really brave to tell your story. So your parents, how did they respond? Because it sounds like they didn't want, were they empathetic with you, or?
They were, but they already knew about it beforehand, and it is in the memoir. So they come about 6 months after I came out about my past, 6 months into therapy and group therapy. My parents came over to visit with my little brother, and I kind of worked on this plan with my therapist to tell my parents about this. So I went to dinner with my parents, just the three of us. My brother who came over, he was out with friends, and I said to my parents, I said, listen, I need to tell you something. And mum, being, I guess, just a concerned mother, said, you've got a girl pregnant. No. You owe someone money. No. You're in trouble with the police. No. You're sick, or you've got, whatever it was. No. I'm like, please just be quiet and listen. And I said, all right, this is going to be very hard to say and to take and everything else, but I just want you to listen. And I said, I was abused as a child. I was raped as a kid. And mum said, no, you weren't. We didn't abuse you. No one abused you. And I'm like, I was abused at the Queanbeyan pool, at the local swimming pool when I was 8 years old. And then there was silence because they knew I was serious, because I started crying and I was just, all over the place. And, mum asked the questions, who, what, when, where, why, all those questions that the mum would ask. And it was so weird. It was so weird, because growing up, my mum was a disciplinarian. My mum was, she was the one who disciplined us, and dad was a big softie. Dad was a real softie growing up. But it was literally the first time ever that the roles were reversed, that mum just cried and stood up and wanted to give me the hug of her life. And it was the first time ever I saw my dad get just really, really angry and say, who is this guy? I want to fucking kill this guy. I want to, kill this man. And I said, listen, it's not about killing this guy. I don't need to kill him. It's just about letting you guys know. And then the first thing my mum said, which was the first thing my sister said when I told her as well, was, wow, that explains everything about you.
Oh my
now God. We understand why you were the kid you were, why you acted the way you were as a kid, and you just isolated yourself in your bedroom and you wanted no friends and you didn't want to talk to anyone. And then the drugs and the sex and the violence growing up and just the messiness of your life. So that, they just said, wow, that explains everything.
Mm. So none of them really had any idea at that time.
They just thought I was a quiet kid who was just didn't want to be with anyone and just wanted to be on my own. And, I suffered depression. And when I suffered depression in Australia, and I broke down pretty hard in Australia before coming out, they would always ask me, are you okay? What's wrong? Talk to us. And all I did was say, you wouldn't understand. And I don't know what's wrong. I can't tell you what's wrong because I don't know. Because I had pushed it so far down within me that I to a certain point didn't even know what was wrong with me and couldn't share and wasn't ready to come out and talk about my past.
Well, and it's also amazing how effective the grooming that your perpetrator did to
Absolutely.
make you suppress it. You
Absolutely.
had no choice but to suppress it because
Absolutely.
what he told you and what he instilled in your psyche to,
Yeah.
that you could never tell anyone.
Yeah. And then the shame and I guess the shame, the toxic masculinity, and the shame is, it's not my shame. It's his shame. If you understand, shame is my abuse, is shame, him putting it onto me and then me taking it on. So yeah, like I said, his first words were, if you tell anyone, I'll kill you and kill your family. As an 8-year-old in the 80s, when we don't have access to mobile phones, to the internet, to the avenues we have today, to the charities, the hotlines, everything that's out there for us today, I kept it a secret, and I swore to myself I would never tell a soul. And as an 8-year-old boy, I had to grow up into a man. I had to turn into a man to survive, in order to survive.
And it seemed like he knew stuff about your family.
Yeah.
How many brothers and sisters you
Yeah,
had, and
I
so
guess
forth.
because growing up in a small town, we all kind of knew each other or knew of each other, and we all played sports, and we would all, after school, the bus would stop us down at this interchange, so we'd all get off there and hang out there. And he would just come and walk up to me at the bus interchange and put his arm around me and walk away with me. And I remember speaking to my very best friend about that. And again, it's in the book. And he said, I just thought he was a family member. I just thought he was your uncle or your dad, or just taking you home, because it was just so nonchalant. It was just so arm around and walk off.
Since you have come out with your story, do you have a ton of people coming up to you going, oh my gosh, that happened to me?
Yeah, absolutely. When that article came out, the very first article, that was the big thing. I was back in New York when it came out. So it came out in Australia on the Sunday morning paper, which was the biggest paper in Australia. And it was Saturday afternoon here. So it was about 6 a.m. Australia time, which would have been about 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. here Saturday. I started receiving texts and messages and emails. And I'm like, holy fuck, I can't do this. I don't want to cope. So I turned my phone off. It was Halloween weekend. We had a party. So I went to a party with my friends. The next morning, I turned my phone on, and I had over 100 messages and texts and emails and Facebook and Instagram of so many people in my town saying, Nathan, this happened to me at the pool, or this happened to me as well, or it was a lot more common. And they just said, wow, you have given me the power now to tell my story. You have given me the power now to move forward, to find closure, to confront this person, to do whatever they needed to do in order for themselves to move forward. And even today, through this memoir and the book, I've had people from all over the world. It's amazing how many men and boys I've had from India and Southeast Asia, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, just saying this is rife in our country, but we cannot talk about it. I've had women from the Middle East say that I'm the very first person that they've told, and if they talk about it in their town or in their city or in their country, they'll get murdered. They said one lady from their town came out and spoke about this. Her husband killed her because she brought shame on the family, and he got away with it and just moved on. I've had plenty of men and women from Australia, from Europe, from America. I've had a lot of mothers actually reach out to me, which is really, really means a lot to me. I've had a lot of mothers reach out to me and say, Nathan, the way I look at my children now, the way I speak to my children, the way I look at my relationship now with my husband or my partner or my boyfriend, whatever it is completely different because of your book. The way I educate my children. I've had teachers reach out to me. I've had so many therapists and counselors and say, wow, I've never read a book like yours that is so graphic and with so much detail. And for me, if I was going to tell this story, I wanted to put all the details in, because in order to educate the world, in order for people to understand what one actually really goes through, you need to put the details in, because there are many men out in the world who will come out and say, I was raped, I was abused, I was molested. But that is all they'll say, because they are not ready, or they can't, or they don't know how, or they don't want to talk about the details. But we don't learn anything from that. So in order for us to learn, for the public, for our children, for whoever is reading this book, you need to put the details in there in order to move forward, in order to educate yourself, and also for the victims and now the survivors, in order for them to move forward and understand what they went through and to educate themselves, they need to know the details.
Yeah.
so that they understand.
What would you say? Somebody's listening and they're there. They're going, oh my gosh, that happened to me. What are the next steps? Like, you can't just say, oh man, that happened to me, and life stops. So what are the next steps?
I think the biggest thing for me was talking about it. You need to talk about it. It's the same thing with everything, AA, whatever it is, that first step, as soon as you take that big step, surrounding yourself with the right people, the people who are going to trust you, who are going to believe you, who are going to sit with you and listen to you, and self-care, making sure you take care of yourself, making sure when you get depressed, when you get anxiety, when you get whatever, you ground yourself. The most important thing is taking those deep breaths and breathing, because that is just going to ground you. It's going to settle you. It's going to support you. But the biggest thing for me was therapy, was being able to talk to someone. And then from there, it just grew, understanding what I went through, being able to open up to more people. Group therapy was amazing because I was in a group with 8 people or 10 people, or AA, or, when you got 15 people, 20 people, and we are all telling our stories. And as whether I share that day or whether I get to tell my story, I learn more from other people and can relate so much. So it's just about surrounding yourself. And as hard as it is, that very first step, once you take it, it does get easier. And I relapsed and I fell into it and I went back to the violence and the sex and the drugs, but it does get easier, and it did get easy for me, and I did grow from it, and I did just learn about myself. I think that was the biggest thing, understanding what I went through, understanding that, I guess, I don't know if this was probably a question from you guys, but the biggest thing I learned in therapy was my therapist asked me, and this is again all in the memoir, my therapist asked me, Nathan, if you can go back today and speak to your 8-year-old self, what would you tell him? And I would and ah about it. And I'm like, I don't know. And my therapist was a tough woman. She was 5'1", 5 foot nothing. God rest her soul. She passed away. She's dead now. But she was on me all the time and would just kick my ass until I came up with the answer. And then it finally hit me what I would tell my 8-year-old self. And it wasn't your fault. And as soon as I realized that, as soon as I discovered that, it was like an onion. It was peeling back those layers and the weight just came off. So that was the first biggest step and the first biggest kind of breakthrough. And then there were so many more in therapy and AA and stuff like that.
Yeah. Recovery is such a process. And I think that telling our story, like you said, is the first big step, but that we don't let go of moving forward, of doing, like you said, therapy or AA or some sort of group, that we need that support in that community. And often we want to isolate because of what we see as our shame. And it's so important. And, the biggest thing we tell people is, number one, tell your story. But for me, I'm always saying daily, you have to daily do your personal growth. You have to be committed to that, because it will grab a hold of you and those voices just yell so loud.
Absolutely. Because I still have those voices in my head. I still want to act out and do bad things. I still want to, it's there. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be there. But for me now, and what I do, I do some life coaching, and I have a TED talk coming up soon. And, so it's all building up toward that. For me now, and what I talk about a lot is breaking up with my abuser, how I broke up with my abuser, how I broke up with shame, how I broke up with toxic masculinity, how I broke up with so much anger and hatred and everything. And one of the biggest things for me to break up with shame was owning my shit, owning who I was, owning the bad things I've done, owning, because I hurt a lot of people. I did a lot of bad things as a result of what happened to me. But as soon as I took ownership of that, again, the weight fell off and I was able to understand and grow. The same thing with toxic masculinity. The more I was able to communicate, open up, share my story, cry, be vulnerable, the more of a man I am. Whereas the men who keep it inside and beat up women and beat up boys or whatever they do, and the violence and the anger, they're not men. But being able to talk about my past and communicate and share and be vulnerable and sit and listen, that's some of the biggest things I've learned.
We're talking with Nathan Spiteri, who wrote the book Toy Cars, One Man's Journey from Trauma trauma to triumph. And Nathan, I'm so proud of you. You're probably about the age of my sons, and I feel like I'm really proud of you because I know it's so hard to tell a hard story like this. But what I love so much is what you have learned from it, and that you're not letting it destroy you, but you're using what happened to help other people to be able to get through it. Because like you said, I wasn't ever going to tell anyone. You probably thought you were the only one, and he had done such a good job, bad job of grooming you, that you believed him. And so I think, that's something that I think people really struggle with, because it happens when they're a child. They remember, or they finally deal with it when they're adults, but they don't really see themselves as a child. They see them, they think of themselves as an adult. And so I think the fact that you're doing the hard work, we hear people sometimes say, well, I went to a counselor, but it didn't really work. It's like, then get a different counselor, get a trauma-informed counselor, get the support, get the help.
Or they'll say that they went to therapy for a few months or for a couple of weeks and they're all cured now, they're all better. But it's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing. You learn about yourself every day. You're growing every day. You're evolving every day. And, one of the biggest things I've learned as well is I've had a lot of people say, Nathan, just get over it. Move on with your life. Stop talking about it. But what they don't understand, and this is all trauma. Trauma is all relative. Whether it's PTSD or mental illness or domestic violence, mental abuse, whatever it is, that's what happened to me is now a part of me. It's ingrained in me. It's a part of my DNA. It's not about getting over it. It's about moving forward with it, understanding what it is, educating myself, growing with it, being able to evolve and just survive, because it's always going to be there. It's always going to pop its ugly head up. It's always going to fucking just, jump out at me. So it's about being able to understand, being able to move forward with it. And for me as well, and we are all different, but for me, when this stuff hits me, when something hits me and grabs me or triggers me or whatever, what I do is I let it hit me, see where it hits me in my body and what it does to me. And then I work through it. I try and understand it. I move forward with it instead of just throwing it away. Because if I throw it away there and then, it's going to come back bigger and badder and uglier and everything else. So it's about understanding it, working my way through it, and then letting it go once I know. And then so that when it does come back later on, I know how to handle it. I know how to move forward with it, and I know how to grow and push through it.
Yeah. There's a really good book. I don't know if you've read it yet. The Body Keeps a Score.
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, I heard so much about it through different channels, and I finally had to get it. And it's a dense book. It's, about the neurological effects of trauma in your brain and in your body. And the first half is about the effects, and then the rest of it is about treatments and different types of treatments that work and so forth. And getting through the first half was difficult because I recognized so much in my life. And there's a test in there. I think it's an ACE test or about
ACEs.
And I scored like 7 or 8 on it out of 10, and I was like, I'm basically doomed.
I think I was about an 8 as well.
And I was like, wonderful. I aced that test. But the rest of it about different types of treatment is really helpful. And like you said, it's it's a lifelong process.
It is.
And I liked what you said about owning your stuff, because in a way, and what we did to cope, we had to do, and we have to live with the fact that we did it. But, it was our way of survival.
Absolutely.
The things we did to cope, that was how we survived. And even though I'm not happy about all the things I did to cope, I mean, I followed a very similar path for quite a while. It took me a lot longer than 26 years to talk about my abuse. But, I made it through and survived, and owning those coping methods is important to realize that that's not working anymore. That's what I did in the past. That's what got me through. But now I have to use more healthy, effective ways of dealing with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because people always say, do you have regrets? Do you regret what you've done? Absolutely. I regret what I've done. I've heard a lot of people, I did some bad things. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't change a thing now, because it's made me who I am today. everything I went through, the bad, the ugly, the violent, the everything. Yes, I regret doing it, but I wouldn't change it because yes, it has brought me to where I am today. And today I know who I am and I know what I want in my life. I'm sure of myself. I'm sure of where I'm headed. I'm a man. I understand men. I understand my life. I understand what I went through. And for me now, whether I make $20,000 a year, whether I make $20 million a year, it's irrelevant. For me now, it's about peace, it's about love, and it's about joy, because I've never felt any of those before. And, you know, joy is from within, obviously. Yes, happiness is happiness when I buy a new car or sitting talking to you guys, but joy is from within. And just peace, I've never felt peace because I've had such a crazy fucking life and just all over the place. And I've never been settled. And love, I just want to love. I'm ready for it now. I was never ready for it and I ran away from it. But now I'm ready for it and I want to give it and I want to receive it and I'm open to receiving it. And that's what's important to me now.
Well, it was dangerous because it was you thought you loved that person because you didn't know what love was. So of course it was so confusing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it has. It's been a journey and now I've come out the other side, but you know, I'm not fully cured. I'm not perfect. I'm not, like I said, it's an everyday thing. It's a work in progress.
Yeah. And I think part of it is realizing that we deserve love. We deserve, you know, to have peace and joy in our lives, because I know a lot of what happened to me made me feel like I didn't deserve the good things in life, but I didn't.
Absolutely.
I would never have them because I was basically doomed from the beginning.
Yep. I was exactly the same. I didn't deserve love. I didn't deserve happiness. I didn't deserve the good job. I sabotaged all of it. I didn't deserve friendships and whatever it was.
And I think part of just dealing with what we did to survive is also getting past it and realizing that we do deserve to thrive. We deserve that. And so that's kind of the stepping towards thriving.
Yeah.
Towards really living our lives that we deserve.
What's really stood out to me, I just love everything you have said. I feel like I'm gushing, but that when we don't do the work, when we don't recognize it, we stay these hurt people. And in your beginning, you say hurting people, hurt people, healed people, heal people. And I've never heard that second one.
Yes.
And I think of so many people that haven't told their story. They're in a family and, you know, husband, wife, mom, dad, but they're still reacting. They're still doing those coping skills and they're hurting everyone around them. And they're like, how come nobody loves me? It's like, because you don't love yourself because you haven't done the work. And it's so important to look inside and to say what happened and to tell the story, as scary as it is, because that's what unlocks, that's where the freedom finally comes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I remember hearing hurt people years and years and years ago. And I'm like, holy fuck, that is me. That is how I live my life. And I'd written a book and I was writing a preface and I have a very close relationship with the publisher. She has a publishing company in Australia, Three Little Birds Press. And we were talking a lot about things. And I posted something one time on Instagram and she replied back to me and said, Nathan, healed people heal people. And I don't know if she made it up because I had never heard of it before. Everyone I shared it with and spoke to about it with said, fuck me, that they've never heard it before. So I think my editor made it up and it was like, wow, this is brilliant. And it's so fucking simple because we've always said hurt people. Yeah. But we've never said heal people. Yeah. And it was that's right hope. There in front of our face.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's hope.
Think of what that article did in Australia when all those people realized, that was them also, and how that changed their lives. And by changing their lives, it changed the lives of their family, their friends as well. I mean, it's a chain reaction.
It is.
That's why we're doing this podcast as well, is just so men can talk about, men and women, but primarily men just don't talk about it.
They don't. And it's a global epidemic. Yes, I think it's 1 in 3 women, but it's 1 in 6 men have been sexually abused, and they're the men who come out. So imagine the thousands and thousands of men who will never ever talk about their abuse or come out about their abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just Australia. It's not just America. Like I said, it's thousands of boys. And it is men and women.
I work with a lot of people in recovery from drugs and alcohol. And once they get clean and sober, a lot of times there is that childhood trauma. And one of the counselors I like to talk to, her name is Dr. Shauna Springer. And her group at the Stella Center call it PTSI. So they're saying it's post-traumatic stress injury because injuries can be healed.
Interesting.
And
yeah.
I think it's so easy to think, I remember the first time it was actually Kevin's wife, Charnel. I told her, and I went home. It was before internet, before mobile phones. I must have called her 20 times. You're not going to tell me. I mean, I was so freaked out. And then I totally shut down and I wouldn't even talk to her for like over a month. Yeah. And, I didn't even recognize that behavior until later. And then, she's reflected a lot of that to me. But I remember being so terrified because now I've told, and guess what? That's where all those little child things, you're going to be killed. You're going to be, all of the things you've been told. You're an adult, but you still believe it because you haven't had counseling to help you sort it.
Yeah, I remember telling my best friend for the first time, and I walked away and I'm like, okay, yes, great, it's done. I've told someone, but the heaviness just came on me twice as much because I'm like, okay, now I've told someone. Now what do I do? I don't know how to do this. How do I move forward? And how do I heal myself or find healing or get peace and I have to say, and I say it in my memoir, therapy saved my life.
Mm-hmm.
It did, and I would recommend it to anyone. Absolutely.
And I really think for me, group therapy was so important because realizing not only just having someone to tell my story to, but realizing there were other men. And I was in a group with, 5 other men, all different ages, all different professions, all different men. And realizing this happens to anyone. It's not just...
Doesn't discriminate.
Yeah. And also realizing that a lot of the effects of it and the fears, for men, the fear is that you're going to get found out, that someone's going to find out there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And, all those, we all have those same fears, and just knowing that I wasn't alone in that was so important.
Yeah. Yeah. My group it was all men and one woman, but it wasn't just for people who'd been through sexual abuse and I actually hit my rock bottom, my true rock bottom, and it's in my memoir again, but my true rock bottom was in therapy. And our therapist gave us an assignment and she said, next week, I want you to all come to therapy with something that you're proud of, something that you've done, something that you're happy with, something that you're really fucking proud of. So everyone brought something in. There was a singer who brought in songs. There was a poet who brought in poetry. There was a fashion designer for a massive clothesline who brought in her portfolio. Then there was a PR exec who brought in all the advertisements he'd created. I was last. It was my turn. Throughout this group thing, I'm like, oh my God. And the stress was just building and building. And I started crying before it was even my turn. And I was last and therapist said, all right, Nathan, what do you have? And it broke my heart. It just fucking killed me because I said, you know what? I have absolutely nothing. I have absolutely nothing that I'm proud of or that I've done in my life or anything. And it just broke me. And that was my true rock bottom. But there was a kid, he was about my age. We were the 2 youngest people in therapy or in group. He shouted out, but didn't shout out, but he actually said, Nathan, you're here. That's what you should be proud of. That's the most amazing thing you've done. You are here right now and you're finding peace and you're healing yourself. And that just fucking, again, it woke me up and it just, from rock bottom to feeling amazing. But then as soon as that therapy was done, I was in such a bad place because I still hadn't gotten over that rock bottomness of having nothing. And I went to the pub and acted out and got into a fight and got wasted and so it was still that journey of up and down and the roller coaster. And so I've had quite a few rock bottoms.
Man.
So what do you think you would say you were proud of now?
Oh, wow. That's a great
question.
Or
is that going to hit you?
I think there's a few things now, to be honest with you. I think this book, this memoir, because my whole life is in it. And there are a few things I didn't put in it, but my whole life is in this book. And it's very raw and very real and
Yes.
detailed. And I think the proudest thing I am now is just, I don't need people telling me how brave I am and how much of an inspiration I am. I don't need that. What I'm really proud of is actually, and I don't know if this will make sense, but people coming up to me and saying, Nathan, your book is amazing. Your writing was amazing. That makes me feel good. But then, I do a lot of speaking events now and keynotes and podcasts. And it is always nice when people come up to me at the end of it and said, I've read your book, or your book saved my life, or, all of those things. It does pick you up. It does lift you up. It does make you realize you are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Even when I am in a bad place, even when I think, what the fuck am I doing this for? Because it is hard what I'm doing and being so open and public. And, I've been told quite a lot that there's not many men out there as public and open like me. Let's say I've spoken to 100 people about this in the media. I've had 95 rejections or 98 rejections. I've had so many people in the media say to me, if you're a woman, we would talk to you today. Because you're a man, we are not going to talk to you.
Wow.
And it fucking kills me.
Are you kidding?
I swear to God. Or they'll say, go and make it with someone else first and then come and talk to us. We don't want to be the first ones to do this article or to do this interview, because male sexual abuse is still such a taboo subject. No one wants to talk about it. No one wants to deal with it. No one wants to know it.
And bam, that's it.
And bam, that is it. And I've said it to my best friends, my closest friends, and I'll say it to you guys, and I'll say it to your audience. And I'm generalizing here, obviously. No one gives a fuck about male sexual abuse. And I don't say that lightly.
Yeah.
Like, no one gives a fuck about male sexual abuse because no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to deal with it. No one wants to know.
I think a good part of it is no one realizes the scope.
Absolutely.
Because they're aware of the scope, or to a degree, of how much, how it's affecting women, but they're not aware of the scope of, people are always surprised when they find out how prevalent it is with men.
And I get it though, because it is a very heavy subject, and I get it. But in order for us to move forward, in order for us to heal ourselves as a community, as a family, as friends, as people, we need to learn and move forward. We've had the Me Too movement. We've had Black Lives Matter. We've had so many movements. And why can't this be one? Why can't it be Men Too? We've got Me Too. Why not Men Too?
Men Too.
Let's start it. Men Too.
Absolutely. Because we need to talk about this. We need to come out. We need to say, listen, this happens every single fucking day.
Yeah.
It is,
and it's happening now.
It's happening
right now.
And people say to me, do you think you'll ever stop it? What you're doing, do you think you'll ever be able to end sexual abuse? No, I won't. We will never end sexual abuse. But if we can save one child, if we can help one person, then we're halfway there.
Mm-hmm.
When Kevin was going to share his story, his pastor asked him to share his story. And I mean, we're all about telling your story, but I felt very vulnerable for him. And I was afraid that he might be judged. And I think that, you say people don't care. And I think that that's how it comes across. But I think people are terrified because usually when you get to the bottom of it, it's fear.
Absolutely.
And so here we are doing this podcast. He's going to tell his story. And I'm like, if people judge him, what if they don't want him now around their kids at church? Because that's what people think. And so our job is to educate. And that's a hard place to come from when you are a survivor.
And I know exactly what you mean by being judged and everything else. And you know what? I'm at a place in my life now where if you want to judge me, go for it. I know who I am. I know what I am as a person. So go fuck yourself. And I don't mean that, but
Yeah.
But you do. I mean, seriously.
Absolutely.
I get
but
that. Yeah.
It has been hard as well because I've been on dates and met girls and this, that, and the other. And, I'm very public about my story. So, you always Google someone now when you meet someone or whatnot. And I've had so many girls, or women, I should say, I've had so many women say, Nathan, you are fascinating. Oh. And that's the kiss of death. Because they're like, wow, I have 1,000 questions for you. You are fascinating. You're an inspiration. You're amazing. But there's no way I want to date you because of your past or because of if we have kids or kids, or, you know, they're scared. They don't understand. They're not educated on it. You know, my last girlfriend, and I love her now, and everything else, she was the one who fully accepted me. It didn't work out between us, but she was very accepting and open of it. And it was great to finally feel that. But still, there's a lot of rejection in the media, in the romance side of it, in life. And it, you know, I know what I'm doing. I know I'm the poster boy for this now, and I know that I'm not going to stop. And this is my thing in life now, is to talk about this and to raise awareness. But every day of my life, I'm like, why the fuck am I doing this? Because it is heavy. It is hard. And how much rejection can I take? And I've said this again, what happened to me happened for a reason. And the reason why it happened to me is to share my story, is to educate the world, is to save lives.
Yeah.
You know, Nathan, I have a thought about that. I kind of attacked a little old lady at church because she kept saying everything happens for a reason. And I just, you know, I'm kind of this short, little, sweet, nice lady. And I just came undone and I said, you cannot tell me there is a reason for any child to be sexually abused. And I have had to really come to terms with that, because I don't believe that it happens for a reason. I do believe what we do with it is what matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something I'm still processing, but I can't settle with that. And people say things like that all the time. It was meant to be. It happened for a reason. And that works in some places. But even like women that have had a miscarriage, people say, oh, it happened for a reason. And, you know, that to me is the cruelest thing you can say.
Absolutely.
Because,
no, I get that. I think because I'm saying it about myself. And I think just because of what I've learned about my past and my journey now, that doesn't make sense, that it happened to me to save lives, to help others, to help those who don't have a voice, to help those who are not brave enough to come out and and
that's the difference, is that you were brave enough to come out. And even like one of our friends, Mike, that we have interviewed, you know, he as a young teenager was abused by a parishioner. Is that right? By a pastor. But then as he delved into it, he realized there was childhood stuff. And so it's like, you know, it's like, do I want to talk about this? And do I want to come out with this? And I think, like, even for some people, they never will. And that's their choice and that's their option, but they might live in bondage. And like you say, you know, why am I doing this? And then on the other hand, the freedom and the joy that you have experienced. It's like when I was growing up, I had a girlfriend with a perfect childhood, my best friend.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, God must love her so much more than me. That's how I thought. And like for Kevin, he didn't grow up with any religious or, you know, church. So he just wanted to be accepted into church. So yeah, I think it's interesting how we, you know, use however, whatever happened to us to define and to make sense of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I think of you as this little kid who's getting, you know, shanghaied in the bathroom and you don't even have the words, you don't even know what to do. There's nobody rescuing you. There's nobody there, you know, and the fact that it's still happening, and not only in the US, but in other countries. And that I think as a parent that who had been sexually abused, I was never a helicopter mom, but I was aware of what can happen if you send your kid to the bathroom by themselves. Parents that haven't had anything like that, they set their kids up because they don't know and they don't believe that bad things happen.
One of the most important things I've learned in my time, and I talk about this a lot, and the reactions I get are so varied. But if we're going to educate our children, we need to start when these kids are 1, 2, 3 years old. We need to tell these kids, boys and girls, that their penis is called a penis, their vagina is called a vagina. We don't give it nicknames, we don't play with it, we don't make fun of it and make light of it, because if we do that, then if some random man or whoever comes up and starts playing with them and makes jokes about it and teases it and gives it a nickname, they think it's normality. We need to tell these kids that their penis is their penis, their vagina is their vagina. It belongs to them. No one's allowed to touch it. You don't joke about it. We need to tell them these things, that it's not their fault. They're not going to get in trouble if someone touches them, that it's okay to tell. And so many mothers or parents I've spoken to have said, there is no way I can have that conversation with my child. But I'm like, this is your child. How can you not educate your child on this? And they're like, no, it's too embarrassing, or it's I just can't do that. So we have a long way to go as parents, as adults, in educating ourselves in order to educate in order to educate our children, we need to educate ourselves. Otherwise, what's the point?
And which this brings us right back to the beginning. If we are uncomfortable or we don't want to say those things, then we're setting them up. And how, as adults, let's get comfortable with it. Let's interview the people who have been through it. Let's talk about it. Let's let people know, because it does happen. And we are so quick to protect our girls and teach them how to be safe. But do we tell our boys no? And that's toxic masculinity. I mean, that is in so many ways. And I think that could be a whole show. I would like to say, can we do this again, maybe in a couple of months? Because I think these are really important topics. I mean, we got the story this time, but now I think we need to get some of this. How do we talk about it? How do we, how do we educate? Kristen Bell, she's the voice of Anna on Frozen. Yes. I don't know if you guys know Frozen. Yeah. She just did 2 books. One is Purple People and now is Purple Schools. And you're purple people if you're kind. And, it's like maybe there's a children's book in here somehow.
Yeah.
That you could be writing, because I know, like, my grandkids are coming out of the foster care system. They've been adopted. They've had trauma. We have no idea what it is.
Okay.
As a grandma, I mean, my daughter and son-in-law are amazing. They know all about this. They know about ACEs. They're great parents. As a grandma, I want to love them so well. And I know they're safe because I know my kids know about this, right? Because I raised them to know about it. But we need more of that. We need people that are willing to talk about it. And even in kids coming out of the foster care system into a regular family that's never had trauma, how do we teach them? Your kid might have trauma they don't even know they have. And how can you love them and be honest with them? And, all of
that's why, I want to do this on a bigger platform. I've been told, and I'm hopefully going to start a podcast with one of my good friends who is a female victim as well. So it's going to be her and I talking about this and interviewing other people. I think just like you two are.
Yeah.
And, speaking of Kristen Bell, her husband, Dax Shepard, has got one of the biggest podcasts in the world now with Armchair Expert. And he talks about being molested, but he doesn't go into much detail, but he talks about being molested, and he's someone I really look up to, and a podcast I would love to get on, because he has 1 million, listeners every time. So I want to do that. I want to, get on these big podcasts, get on these interviews, and just really start talking about this. But as I said, it's tough.
Yeah.
Getting your foot through the door. But I'm working with a coach now for my TED Talk, and he's always said to me, Nathan, what you need to realize, and don't forget this, is you were the very first. You were the very first doing this and going so open and public. So you were going to get all the rejection. You were going to get all the no's, all the pushbacks. But once you get that one yes, once you get your foot through the door and you open it up, you're going to open up the door for every other single person out there that is trying to get through.
Yeah.
That's so true. And that happened with Brene Brown.
Yes.
She got rejected. Who wants to talk about shame?
Yes.
Right. But yeah, I agree with you. And I just want you to know, Kevin and I will support you in every way. And, I work in radio.
Likewise.
I know all about podcasting, but you can do it from your phone. You can do it from Zoom. I would love to see you start one tomorrow.
Yeah. And we're definitely on our way there. We're almost there now. So just fine tuning everything. So I'm excited for the future and what's to come, and where we're at and where we're going with this, because we have to change. as a community, as a country, as a world, as a global audience, we need to change. We need to start talking about this. And, as men need to have a voice about this, obviously, because, we're in that world now where the Me Too movement and that was amazing. But there are men victims, the Men Too movement. We need to have a voice now. We need to come forward because there are so many men in the world suffering. I think 78% or 79% of all suicides are male.
Yeah.
And I think it was over 60% of these males who kill themselves, it's as a result of sexual abuse
or some trauma. Yeah.
So we
trauma.
need to start coming forward with this. I'm also in the works now of putting together like a 6 to 8 part documentary series of men talking to men about men's issues, with me as a host or me on there interviewing other men, having psychotherapists, and just talking about our issues. So, that's in the works as well. So I'm out there and I'm getting it done, or I'm trying to get it done and move forward. A movie script has been written about my life, about my book and about my life. We now might be turning that into like a 6 to 8 part TV series as well, because in a movie you've got 2 hours, but in a TV series you've got 8 hours to really explore the relationships and everything else that comes with it. So, there's a lot I want to do with this. There's a lot I want to really explore and move forward with. But I just need that one person to say, Nathan, I've got your back and I want to do this with you.
So can I say, I'm a life coach, and there's something that, when I hear you, you don't need to. You are doing it. It feels hard because you're getting rejection, but you actually are doing it.
I know.
That is amazing. And there's a favorite quote. I also wrote a book, and before I wrote it, I remember my publishing coach said this: if not you, then who?
Exactly.
If not now, then when? And if not this, then what?
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, it's like, what you know, but dang it, it's hard.
It is. And for me now as well, obviously I have my Australian publisher for the book, and she is lovely. She's actually said to me, Nathan, if you find a US publisher that wants to take this book on, go with them, because they will be able to get it out in the States so much bigger and better to a global audience. So that's another thing I'm doing as well, is trying to reach out to some US publishers, and hopefully we can get it published here again through them to really get the book out and to get some PR and media and stuff here. I want this book to be a New York Times bestseller. I think it can be. I think it will be. And, and I'd love to do this again in a few months once you guys have actually read the book, because, obviously you've got you saw the chapters are before him, with him, after him, and today. So the after him and today is all about they're hitting rock bottom, but then the discovery and the recovery and the moving forward and the healing part of it, which is so much more important than the story itself.
Yeah.
And this story itself, again, is so much bigger than me, because, again, there are millions of us out there who are suffering. So if I can tell my story to save thousands or to help thousands of people, then my message is, it's not about me. It's so much bigger than me. So, we're all in this together. And if we can all come together and have a voice and really get out there and really, crack that mold and just kind of break through, then I think we can do some amazing things in this world. And that's my mission, is to really create change.
Most of the people we've interviewed, they saw Oprah, they saw some TV show, they heard somebody tell a story. Almost everyone, that's how they were finally able to recognize and get the help they needed. So you being brave enough to do this is so huge.
We also do panels where we have some of the guests come back on and we talk about different topics. And I like this idea of toxic masculinity. We haven't really discussed that much yet, and that would be an important topic, I think.
I'd like that to be our next one. We interviewed a guy. He was from a recovery program that I work with. We had no idea, and he told us how he actually killed his stepdad.
Oh, wow.
With his molester. Wow. Kevin and I are like, oh. But because he told his story, I'm a professional, I work in radio, but that changed his life.
Yeah.
Because he had been in jail, and then he started sharing his story in his recovery groups, and everyone, all these men were like, oh my God, that happened to me. So I just want you to feel heard and blessed, and we will do everything, and I will do whatever I can with my power of the radio station. I have 5 radio stations that it will air on, and they all also comes out on a podcast. So I will do my part to support you.
Let's do it. Yeah. Yeah.
And we always close in prayer. I don't know if that's if you're into that or not. If not, that's okay. You can bail or you can pray with fine. Us. So yeah, we'll go ahead and but I just want to say before we go to prayer is the book is called Toy Cars, and the author is Nathan Spiteri, and it has been just a joy and a pleasure talking with you, and I look forward to many more awesome conversations.
Me too. Thank you so much to the both of you. This has been a lot of fun, but it's been amazing. It's been great. I really do appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So that's it for today.
We are going to have a prayer time if you want to stick with us. If not, we believe in you.
We want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories.
If you like this podcast, please rate and review, because that's how other people can find us. And we really want to spread this message.
Father, I just thank you for all your blessings, especially for the work that Nathan is doing and the work that he will do. And I just pray you would bless his work and continue to give him the strength and courage, and also the endurance, because it's going to take a lot of endurance, Lord. And I just pray you would be there with him and support him, and also break that mold. Find the people that really want to hear his story and want to do something about it, Lord. I just pray he would break through that mold of no one caring about it, Lord. And I just thank you for his courage, and that he will be an inspiration to many men to share their stories. And I'm grateful for him coming to be on our show tonight. And I just thank you again that you have given him the grace, and you've shown him his worth, and that you do love him and care for him, and he is worthy. And it is not true, the lessons that he was taught, but that you do find him worthy, and you love him, and you care for him, and that he is worth it, Lord. I just pray that you would continue to impress that in his life, that he is worth it. In your name I pray.
And Father, I just thank you that he came on our show, and that he is breaking all of the silence. And Lord, the bravery, yes, in telling the story, but even more so being brave enough to continue daily work, because we know sometimes it gets really hard. And I just pray that you'll give Nathan encouragement. And I'm just asking for that. Yes, Lord, for a great big yes in his life as he moves forward with this. And Lord, it's like when Kevin said he was going to do a podcast and he was going to do it about this, Lord, it's like, we just want to be a vessel of that goes forth to open doors for people to get the healing and the help they need, Lord, in this one lifetime. And I thank you that he is willing and brave to do that. And I thank you for open doors. And I just pray that you will bless Nathan as he goes through this week. I pray that you will give him encouragement. And I thank you for the people that hear his story, Lord, that they will know that, they've got to tell their story, and that, yes, they've got to get help. And that's so important. And I just thank you so much that you do love us. And sometimes we feel so unworthy of love, and you just love us for who we are, no matter what. And I'm so grateful for that, in your son's holy name.
Amen.
Amen.